Welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thank you so much for checking us out every single week with 3 new interviews put out, one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So you know the drill. If you enjoy what you're seeing and hearing, please hit that subscribe button. Today, I've got the honor of talking with Kate Stables of This Is the Kids, who's back with a brand new record. Kate, it is a pleasure to meet you on here. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Nice to meet you. Likewise, nice to meet you on here.
Yeah. Well, first off, congratulations on this record. What a beautiful and complex and fun record. I think it's okay to say that as well on here too.
Allowed.
I mean, yeah, this really does seem like a new level for you. And reading about, a bit of what you've talked about so far on this record, I know some of that has to do with you teaming up with Josh Kaufman. I was curious because you said he got you to things you wouldn't usually do musically. And I figured that's a good place to start because what are you exactly talking about there?
Well, just, I think he's just more open-minded than me, or we've just maybe had different musical paths slightly at the same time as having similar musical paths. I guess as being a sort of a female musician that gets called folk, there's certain things that I flinch away from, like, little triggers like acoustic guitars, flutes, glockenspiels, things like that I'll just be like, no, I'm not going to do that, no. But luckily Josh doesn't flinch away from those things, and it means that the sound is richer and more interesting, and he's playing this beautiful music, and it's really great, and it opened up my mind and the sound and the album, and so I'm really grateful about that.
Yeah, those critical boxes that most artists get put in, and it is interesting to hear how sometimes an artist will react to that in their writing. I mean, do you find yourself purposely outside of just the instruments, even how you write a song? Do you find yourself going, no, because of that?
Not really, because I think if I have an idea that for a song, then it's an idea that I'm into, if you see what I mean. It's not like if it was something I didn't want to put in the song, I wouldn't have thought about it in the first place, if that makes sense. But I do. I had a thought and then it's gone. Yeah, songwriting. I just do songwriting. It happens whether I like it or not in whatever style I do. But I think, I remember what I was thinking of. Like the other day, I had an interview and someone was saying about how much they liked all of the nature that I sing about. Mm. And I don't feel like on this album anyway, I don't feel like it's very nature heavy. But again, because you're a folk artist, people just hear you talking about nature, even if you're not necessarily talking about nature. So I guess that might be the only area where I would maybe tweak my language a little bit. I maybe wouldn't start talking about trees and flowers as much as someone who's less paranoid about being boxed in.
Yeah. Well, on the other side of it, and I'll hit back on something you were saying about Josh, about the different paths that you guys use. Do you find that that's helpful for you as a songwriter to have something to push up against where it's not all like, you don't have a yes person there automatically? I mean, is that helpful to you to have that kind of budding?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just as a human, I think that's really important to have someone that kind of offers up alternatives. And then when you say, oh, I'd rather not, they go, actually you will. And then you're like, okay. And then afterwards you're like, of course, that was the best decision to make. Like, it's really helpful, I think, to sort of question each other and then to compromise and then realize what a good choice it was afterwards.
Well, so if trees and nature isn't a part of it this time, I do apologize for the broad question here, but where did the inspiration come from? Did you see that it was coming, from specific spots as you were looking for the lyrics?
Well, I guess, it usually takes me a while to work out what the themes are of an album, because I'm not someone that sets out with like a message, an idea, a vision, and then gets it done. I kind of write all these scrappy bits of song jigsaw puzzles, and then after I've kind of recorded it, I can sit back and listen and go, oh, look, I mentioned that again. Oh, and again. Oh, okay, right. I must have been thinking about that quite a lot. So I think with this album, there's a lot to do with sort of the responsibility for ourselves and for others. There's a lot to do with kind of empathy and our need to put ourselves in other people's positions and to stop just thinking about ourselves all the time. There's stuff about, oh gosh, I always forget to have like my lyric sheets for interviews because I should just go through the words and go, oh yeah, that theme, oh yeah, that again. But just thinking about, well, I guess it's just another album about the human condition. But at the moment, things are in a bit of a state. So I think I talk about that quite a lot, about what a mess things are in and how it's kind of up to us to sort it out. We can't just wait for someone else to do it. And we can't just, bitch at each other on social media. You've got to sort of get out in your neighbourhood and pick up some rubbish and be nice to someone, hold the door open and smile at the grumpy person in the post office or whatever.
Oh, which is important. It is.
It's really important.
I think that comes up a bit too on, or at least I like hearing what you're talking about on Was Magician, because what I got, again, from another interview and what I'm hearing in the lyrics here is really about this power of youth.
Yeah.
I think you've mentioned Greta Thunberg in previous interviews. But really, that's what I find does become more and more important, and it's noticeable too. I'm in Louisville. There are protests on the street every single day here for months now, and it is about the youth. It's about that fire of youth. What were you thinking about as you were putting that together?
Well, just partly to do with, well, now more than ever, maybe I just haven't been tuned into it, but I feel like now more than ever there are real youth movements for like environmental issues, but also political issues. And, these young people know that their future is heading their way and that everyone who's come before them have kind of messed it up in a lot of ways. There's been a lot of doing things wrong, basically, for hundreds and hundreds of years. So it's time to sort of address that. And obviously it's not just up to young people to sort it out. It's up to everyone of all ages. But it's true that there's a line in Was Magician where I think I say was now the business of the young'uns. And that actually was from when I was listening to an interview with Ursula Le Guin, and someone was quizzing her about what she thinks needs to be done about the state of the world and the environment and sort of politics and stuff. And it was towards the end of her life. She was in her 80s, and she made a comment about how it's none of her business anymore. Like she's done her time. She's worked hard at it, and now it's up to the younger generations. And that sort of really struck me. I mean, I'm not saying I totally agree with her or disagree with her, but I was interested to hear that voice from someone that's had so much life and experience, and kind of she was such a great mind and saw things and spoke about things so clearly and articulately. And so, yeah, that I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the older generations and their take on things, and then the younger generations. And again, this thing, like, we don't own the earth, we borrow it from the future kids or whatever, from the next generation. And people forget that. They just think, I'm here now, I'm going to get as much as I can out of everything as fast as I can. And there's no long game. Like, the change we want to see happen, we probably won't see it in our lifetime, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing it. We shouldn't be like trying to make it happen. You've just got to, well, what is it? Like, the best time to plant a tree is 100 years ago, but the second best time is now. Wow, so yeah. We've got to get on with it.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, you team up with Greenpeace. I think you did a virtual concert earlier this year. I mean, like how involved are you on the environmental activism side right now?
Well, at the moment, not very much, because
okay.
Everyone's inside. I mean, yeah. But yeah, I guess not as much as I'd like to be. I wish I was one of those like abseiling rope access superstars that could just scale buildings and, paint stuff. But I guess I'm kind of an average Joe, like a lot of people, and I try and do what's within my skill set, whether it's turning up to a demo or just, trying to support a cause that needs funding, or I don't know. I'd like to find ways of being more involved, more actively involved. But I think I guess we've got this idea about kind of environmental activism that is a bit daunting, and we think of people doing dangerous stuff and getting arrested. But even just, for example, like during the lockdown, I like started a garden in front of our building. And that, I think, if everyone could do that, it would be really great. Just take a bit of care and pride in your local community, in your neighborhood, and keep doing it, even though people, you know, rip up the plants and go to the toilet and let their dogs dig it up. You've got to keep gardening for everyone, because we're all living together in these neighborhoods.
Yeah, I mean, heck, the idea of just staying inside right now is an act of, I think, activism. So it's environmental activism on top of that.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the fact that we're not traveling as much, not getting as many horrific aeroplanes as before is really great. I wonder what's going to happen. But yeah, I also feel like, well, it's hard, isn't it? Who's making us stay inside? Like, we want to stay inside and look after each other, and that is an active act to sort of care for each other and to be careful. But then it's risky when people in power start seeing that they can use that to their advantage. So we have to like keep an eye open and check that they're not you know, taking advantage of us.
Yeah, I wonder if this is a good seg over to the first official single with "This Is What You Did," because you know, like I hear about you talking how you, in one side, you thrive in solitude, but at the other side, that traveling and being amongst people is also very, very important to you. And I think you talk about this song being a bit of a panic attack of sorts. Is that the tie that brings this song in?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, that's a nice observation, because it's true that we need solitude. Well, different people need it to varying degrees, but I need a lot of solitude. But I also am aware that I also enjoy being around people, and I'm aware that too much time on your own and in your brain spirals you out of control and makes you start thinking all these sort of negative thoughts and doubts. And so I guess that song's a little bit about that. Also, I think it's important to remember that often when we, like, the times when we feel most alone are often when we're surrounded by people. Like, that's a tricky one as well. Sometimes it's not just about is anyone else there or not. It's like to do with how isolated you feel, even if you're in a crowd of people or whatever. So I think, yeah, this song was dealing with that a little bit. And also just the act of saying stuff out loud, I think, is really important. And then I find that when I've said something outside, I often don't think it anymore. Like, all I need to do is say it, and then like, oh, I don't think that after all. Now I've said it. You know, it's kind of an exorcism of these sort of negative things. And I think it's important to speak about things.
Yeah, that's a really good song. I mean, and I know that's not a question, just full stop. That's a really good song.
Thank you. That's really nice.
But I just don't get tired of hearing it. And I think, you know, that compliment goes throughout the record. I mean, even Coming to Get You Nowhere, you know, is such an interesting thing what you're talking about there, which I guess kind of goes along with because a song about being stuck, I mean, here we are, right? We're all in the waiting place on top of everything. So
we're in limbo land.
Yeah. How that all just works out. On the outside of things, on the outside of this record, pinhole photography.
Yes.
Can you tell me about that? Because that's something that I see that you're doing. I guess you've been showing some pieces, right?
Yeah, it's true. There's a touring exhibition that is starting, I think, next month in the UK. That's of a lot of different musicians, and so it's exhibiting visual art that they make. Because this guy Tucker, who's organising it, observantly noticed that people that make music sometimes make visual art as well. And so it's a really nice idea, especially at this time when we can't sort of tour with music. Then touring with different forms of art is quite a nice way of still staying in touch with people. So yes, I have some pinhole photographs in that exhibition.
But what exactly is pinhole photography?
Yeah, good question. So for me, it's making your own cameras. No, it's not. Sorry, let me start again. Pinhole photography is lensless photography. It's photography that doesn't use a lens. So you just have a tiny hole, and then the light gets into whatever camera you're using. And what's nice about pinhole photography is that you can just make your own cameras. You don't need to buy. You can, you know, manufactured ones, but you can just make your own cameras, and that really appeals to me. You don't need to like buy stuff from companies. You can just get a box and make it into a camera. Yeah. And then it's a nice kind of process as well, just the slowing down. you have to choose what you're going to take a picture of. Then you've got to sit it there and stay still for whatever, 20 seconds, an hour. And it's kind of the polar opposite of all this sort of digital quick photography that's just speed. It's kind of makes you sit still and shut up for a bit.
Isn't you're in Paris, right? Isn't Paris like the birthplace of photography? Am I remembering that right?
I don't know. I feel like there was a few people having very similar discoveries at the same time in different countries with slightly different methods, or but I think there was definitely a few of them at it in France.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it seemed like that was part of the story there. I mean, maybe just a nice coincidence. Maybe it's in the air. It's just
it's just a photographic place. I don't know. I don't know. It's just people working out photography, whatever they may be.
These are cool projects. You do such interesting things. I'll quickly point out at the end here too, even with the merch that you're doing with this record, because the card decks look really, really cool. And instead of the usual, spades, hearts, and all that, you've got bones, soap, switches, and scissors.
Yep.
Which is really cool. Why those?
Why? What are you doing? So they're all elements. They're all just lyrics picked out from the songs. So for the artwork for the album, I worked with a Bristol artist called Joff Winterhart, who's really exceptionally brilliant. He's really talented. He does beautiful graphic novels, as well as lots of other art and like video making and things. And so he was up for drawing stuff for the artwork, kind of based on some of the images and the lyrics. And so there's all these objects that he drew, and I picked 4 of them to be card suits. And it was interesting because a little while ago, someone was asking me questions about it, and drew to my attention the fact that with normal card decks, like each suit represents an element, and then that got me thinking about the suits I'd chosen and trying to work out what elements they were, and so that was fun. A bit of card history that I didn't know about. There's always more backstory with decks of cards. There's always like mystical stuff that you don't know about.
That fits into the record perfectly, because there is some kind of mysticism happening in your music. I don't mean to overpaint that and everything, but it is, again, it's so interesting what you do. And I certainly do appreciate it. And Kate, thank you so much for continuing to do that, especially for taking the time to talk about it today, too. This has been really
thank you for taking the time to talk about it. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your questions and for mentioning the cards.
Buy the cards, people, because you can't support her on tour right now. Buy the merch. That's what you got to do. All right. Congratulations on the album. And thank you so much.
Thank you.